Well, the depression for me actually began when I was in my mid-30s. That's when I started to become symptomatic. But what we often don't understand is that depression has a root. It originates somewhere. Just because you feel fine one day and then you feel depressed the next doesn't mean that that's exactly when the depression started. A lot of doctors would tell me that the depression actually started in my childhood because of what I experienced in my childhood. I remember when I was 18, that was a huge turning point for me because I was ready to be done with the turbulent past. I was ready to move forward. And so I began to pursue the things I thought were going to make me happy. I began to pursue men, money, travel, career, children, all the things that this world promises. And each one of those things, I felt a sense of emptiness. It was almost like a disappointment because as I pursued each of these things and I began to hit these roadblocks thinking, well, this is going to make me happy, and then it didn't. When I pursued all the things of this world I thought were going to make me happy, and then I came up empty, that was very discouraging to me. And so I remember I was about in my mid-30s. Here I was at the peak of life. I had a husband who loved me. I had 3 beautiful, healthy children. I had a nice home. I had a successful career. I was standing on stage in Dallas, Texas, before an audience of about 10,000 people.
Wow.
And this pinnacle moment of my life because I was being awarded one of the highest levels of achievement in the company. And I remember standing on that stage thinking, this is it. This is what I shipped my kids off to a babysitter for. This 10 minutes of hoopla in the sun. This is what I did the changing of the guard with my husband for this. And I hit a wall. And I remember crying on the plane all the way home. And that's when the symptoms of depression started. But over the next year, I began to spiral down this deep, dark tunnel where each day got darker and darker. And I spent my days sleeping, screaming, and crying.
Oh, no. That's overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
So
I've often said depression, if you think about it, I talk about this in the book. It's almost as if I was playing blind man's bluff. I remember when I was 6 years old playing with my cousins on the back porch, and I was the one blindfolded, and the room was dark. We didn't turn the lights on, and it was nighttime, so it was pitch black. I could not see my hand in front of my face. And that's what depression is like. Depression is so dark, you can't see what's right in front of you, and that's why your thoughts become so dark.
so many people are going through this now, though, Patty.
Oh, they are. They are. It's actually a global epidemic. We are in this. Depression is the #1 disability in the world right now.
So now, how long did you go through this? How long were you depressed?
The symptoms lasted about a year. Now, I believe I was depressed prior to that because we can be depressed and not really manifest symptoms. But the symptoms of actually the deep darkness, the screaming, the crying, the sleeping, I did turn to alcohol to cope. All these symptoms lasted for about a year.
Oh my gosh. So going through all that, tell me how Christ entered into your life and changed everything.
Well, I grew up in church. I grew up believing in Jesus. I believed he even died on the cross for my sins, but I had no personal relationship with him. So he was actually a last resort for me. I turned to every earthly option to get better. I tried to fix myself. I turned to self-help books. I turned to family and friends. I even turned to doctors looking for help. Thinking if I could just get a pill, I'd be fine. I remember calling all the doctors just with this get fixed quick mentality, but every earthly option failed. And when that happened, and I remember hanging up the phone, I was on the phone calling one of the many doctors I had called, only to hear the woman say, "I'm sorry, but we can't help you." And it was at that moment, thoughts of suicide began to enter my mind because that was the moment I began to think, this is never going to end. I am all alone. Nobody can help me. And now I'm thinking the only way to end this madness is to die. And so those thoughts now were starting to plague my mind. At this point, I started to cry out to Jesus. I started to cry out to God. Even though he was my last resort, I figured he had the power to let me live or die. So I began to ask him to take my life. I did not pray to ask him to help me. I did not pray for healing or a miracle. I just asked him to get me out of this by taking my life. I figured my life was worthless. I was putting my family through hell, especially my children with all of the screaming. My husband was a little more oblivious. I kind of hid it from him a lot better. But the kids were just, it was horrible what I was putting my kids through. And so I had the impression or the mindset that my family would be better off without me. And so I started praying to the Lord to take my life. Every night I prayed to never wake up. And every morning I prayed that this would be the last day. Mm-hmm. I had reached a make it or break it moment. I remember this day vividly. I had gotten up and I felt like I had been grounded to the ashes from which I came. There was absolutely nothing left of me. I could not go on one more day. The darkness was so thick. I was so at the end of myself. I was done. And I'm like, Lord, please help me. And I remember standing in the shower in this make it or break it moment, thinking that if God didn't do something that day, I had determined that I would. And I remember standing in the shower, crying out to him, asking him to help me. I said, I admitted to him, and I think this was critical. I admitted to him that nobody could help me, only he could help me. And I think that that was very critical, to admit my need for him and to admit that he and he alone was the one who could heal me and restore me. I think looking back, in the moment, I didn't realize that. In the moment, I was just desperate. But looking back, I think that was critical. And that was the day Jesus reached into my well and pulled me out. That was the day I came face to face with mercy.
Wow. How did that happen?
I actually heard a voice. I know it's the only time I've ever heard the audible voice of God. It's not something that I think most of us hear on a regular basis, but as I was in the shower, I actually heard a voice that said, go to MOPS. Now, for those who don't know, MOPS stands for Mothers of Preschoolers. And I was part of the organization back then. I had 3 young children. And so I had been going, but I had been also kind of avoiding the meetings, because when you're depressed, that's one of the things you do, is you tend to isolate. You really want help, but you don't want to be around people at the same time. So it's a real mixed paradox. Mm. So when I heard the voice say, go to MOPS, I heard it a second time. I thought, well, I really don't want to go, but okay. I got out of the shower and I got dressed, and with my son in tow, I went to MOPS and I pretended. This is something a lot of people do when they're depressed, is they put a mask on and they pretend that everything is fine. And so I went and I pretended. I smiled. I conversed with the other moms. I ate. I did a craft, which, by the way, I hate to do. And I sat there and I listened to the speaker, who, by the way, it was interesting because as she spoke, she did speak specifically about depression, but she talked about lack of joy, lack of purpose, and how the only pure joy was in Jesus Christ. And I remember sitting there thinking that her message was geared for me. It was almost as if I felt God speaking to me through her. And I remember at the end of her talk, she held up this brochure and said, well, if anyone would like to have a copy of this brochure, to meet her in the back of the room. Nancy, I'm thinking the answer's in that brochure. She had something. This woman had something that I needed. I couldn't put my finger on it at the time. I didn't fully understand it, but there was something about her that drew me to her. So I met her in the back of the room, thinking I'm just going to get one of these brochures. Well, as I stood before her, I felt something from her I had never experienced in my life. I felt this compassion and this love just coming from her. And even though this woman did not know me, she did not know my name, I sensed she understood. And it was like a dam broke. And all of the pent up, the anger and the frustration and the depression, everything I had been holding back, everything I had been hiding behind this mask, just came spilling out. And this poor woman didn't know me, and she's just standing there and allowing me to dump my life at her feet. And I'm telling you, the run-on sentences, I was close to hysterics, really, the way that it was coming out, because I was crying so hard and the words were just spilling out and I wasn't making any sense, even to myself. And I had managed to catch the attention of every woman in the room, who now had turned around to stare at us. But Nancy, at this point, I didn't care. This woman had the answer. She was offering me something that I needed, I wanted, and I no longer cared. And it just came out. And this woman did not pray over me. She did not speak to me. She did not ask me any questions. She just reached out and she touched me on my left arm. And when she did, it just instantly vanished. Everything. It was all gone. The nausea in the pit of my stomach was gone. The crying instantly stopped. It was like someone had come and shut the faucet off. The run on sentences instantly stopped. I just stopped talking and I just started to stare at her. I remember my spirit and my soul feeling light, almost as if they had taken on wings that could fly around the room. That darkness had lifted and I felt free. For the first time in my life, it was like I could breathe.
You're making me cry.
God is good.
God is so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he can change someone. He sends somebody to you just so that you can lay it down at his feet and you got healed.
Mm-hmm.
How amazing is that? That really touched my soul.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
for
you, Lord.
sharing that. So as we continue on, your husband also went through this as well,
He
depression.
did.
And at that point in your book, you have a chapter on a special edition of 20 ways to approach someone who might be depressed. So
Mm-hmm.
would you talk about 3 that are like really important to you?
Absolutely. I think know that it's important in how you communicate to someone who is depressed. Do ask open-ended questions. Don't ask questions that are going to require a one-word answer. Like, for example, saying, is everything okay? Ask questions more like, how did the depression start? When did you start feeling this way? Or say things like, maybe I don't understand how you feel right now, but I care about you. I love you and I want to help. How can I best help you right now? One of the most important things we can do as caregivers is to listen. You don't need to try to fix them. That's not your job. Just listen. Just be there for them. Hold them if they need to cry. If you don't understand depression, if you've never been through it yourself, it's really hard to understand what someone is going through. So just let them know more than anything that you love them, that you care about them, that you are there for them, and that you are willing to walk this out with them. And then I would also say, try to help them to connect with the Lord. This is very challenging when someone is depressed because they have a tendency to push people away, and that includes God. But find ways to reassure them that God sees them, that He hears them, that He loves them, that He does care, that He is with them. Because when someone is depressed, they often feel that God has abandoned them or turned their back on them or does not love them. And so it's very important that we continue to reassure them in that way.
Thank you so much, Patty, for enlightening everybody in this beautiful book that you have written. And I will be putting that up at the end. Finally Free, Breaking the Bonds of Depression Without Drugs. And continue to write, Patty, because you've got a great gift.
Oh, well, thank you, Nancy. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my story. I really appreciate it.
Get your copy of Finally Free on Amazon Books.